And let me say that I am delighted, grateful and thankful to have been invited to contribute to this session of the 20th Conference of the Research Network, Macroeconomics and Macroeconomic Policies, the FMM network. The FMM network seeks to promote an exchange of ideas between competing theoretical paradigms. In terms of its organization, it is based at the Macroeconomic Policy Institute, IMK, Hans-Böckler Foundation, based in Düsseldorf. It is politically independent and directed by a coordinating committee of 16 members with a special focus on supporting young economists, a very important focus, might I add. I was actually invited to one of the first conferences, if not the first one, in 1997, when there were a small number of participants. In fact, there were only 35 with 14 papers. I must thank Eckhart, who was so helpful then and ever since. I very much like to take this opportunity to comment on Eckhart's role in promoting the internationalization of the FMM network and related conferences. Eckhart's contribution has been phenomenal, and let us all thank Eckhart most warmly. Due to Eckhart's major role in terms of internationalizing the conferences, and of course, the relevant contributions of the rest of the organizing committee members, there has been an increasing number of participants, and delighted to observe that the number increased to 200 participants in and after 2007, when in 2007 financialization was the topic of that conference, at the right time, might I add, and a very topical one, not only at that time, but of course ever since. There are now more than 300 attendees from around the world with more than 120 papers. Over the 20 years of well-organized and always up-to-date contributions, the conferences have been extremely interesting and topical. Just 3 relevant points. The first is that they have highlighted the problems of what we call these days, or what they call these days, the new consensus macroeconomics, such as the representative and fully rational agent, absence of distributional effects. Nobody would ever default in view of the transversality condition, thereby implying absence of the financial sector and money, one type of policy only, monetary policy, with one objective, namely price stability, and one instrument to achieve it, the rate of interest. No role for fiscal policy or indeed other policies. The emphasis on the micro foundations of macroeconomics, which totally ignores Keynes's fallacy of composition, and many other problems. The second point is the contribution to the development of Keynesian, post-Keynesian economics, namely the importance of aggregate demand and sufficient productive capacity, accounting for a monetary production economy in which finance and credit play a significant role, along with the notion that there is often inadequacy of aggregate demand relative to what would be required for full employment of the factors of production, with no market-based mechanism in existence to propel the level of aggregate demand to any specific level of output. Thereby, relevant economic policies are required, such as fiscal, monetary, and financial stability policies, and most importantly, coordination of them, emphasizing distributional effects, which are seriously taken on board, along with financialization and other important relevant issues. The overall focus of economic analysis should be sustainable and equitable economic development and growth. Full employment should be the objective of economic policy. Achieving such objectives requires the maintenance of a high level of aggregate demand and sufficient productive capacity. The third point I like to make is that pluralism in economics has also been very much emphasized, as this is highlighted by this year's conference. All the conferences have been relevant to what I have just pointed out, but a couple of examples would make the point stronger. The 2008 conference, Macroeconomic Policies on Shaky Foundations, with the mainstream economics. The 2009 conference on the world economy in crisis, the return of Keynesianism. The 2010 conference on stabilizing an unequal economy, public debt, financial regulation, and income distribution. The 2012 conference on the state of economics after the crisis. The 2014 conference on inequality and the future of capitalism. And of course, this year's conference on towards pluralism in macroeconomics. In addition, the FMM network contains two important activities: the biannual August summer school and the introductory lectures on post-Keynesian economics at each conference, both for graduate students. These activities add enormously to the current and future promotion of Keynesianism, post-Keynesianism, with special focus on supporting young economists. I should also mention the relationship of the FMM network with the European Journal of Economics and Economic Policies Intervention, EJEEP, as it is now called, which is an important journal, especially so in terms of the focus of the FMM conferences. Papers and proceedings of the FMM conferences are published in the EJEEP journal. In fact, the second annual issue of each year's EJEEP is the special issue out of the FMM conference paper, and proceedings of the same year. This is an extremely important development worth emphasizing. It is not at all surprising, therefore, that the FMM network and series of conferences and co-organization of conferences with other networks have contributed to the increased demand for pluralism or for pluralist economics. Further strong evidence on this issue is the student demand, for example, in the United Kingdom, and I'm sure elsewhere, of course, but more emphasis on pluralism in the economics, for more pluralism emphasis in the economics degrees. Also, there are the established and developing relevant networks and relevant initiatives that FMM has been collaborating with, such as, for example, the post-Keynesian economics workshop at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville in the United States, which promoted relevant ideas, but ended when Paul Davidson retired a few years ago. The Bilbao in Spain conferences, the Kansas City in the United States conferences, the Post-Keynesian Study Group in the United Kingdom, the Brazilian Keynesian Association, AKB, conferences, and the recently established August 2015 Greenwich Political Economy Research Center in the United Kingdom, which has research collaboration with the Foundation for European Progressive Studies, what is called FEPS. There is also our Cambridge Annual Conference, which is run by Malcolm Sawyer and myself at the end of March at St. Catherine's College in Cambridge, University of Cambridge, which is on political economy issues. It is repeated at the Bilbao Annual Conference at the end of June and the contributions are subsequently published in a book form for our international papers in political economy, what we call IPPE. I am sure there are other links with the FMM. These are just a few examples of the current and no doubt future state of Keynesian, post-Keynesian, and pluralist economics, which is very promising indeed. The organizers of this conference are very keen that we celebrate on this occasion not merely the FMM network and conferences, but also the whole relevant community. I have no doubt in my mind that given the enormous success of the FMM conferences, and of course other ones, over the last 20 years or so, I suggest that equal, if not more, success will be forthcoming in the next 20 years and more. More relevant details on the FMM initiatives are provided in the 2009 paper by Eckhart and Young, entitled The Research Network Macroeconomics and Macroeconomic Policies, FMM, Past, Present and Future, published in what is now labeled as the European Journal of Economics and Economic Policies Intervention, EJEEP, Volume 6, Number 2, pages 166 to 173, which I strongly recommend. Finally, I very much like to thank Eckhart and the rest of the FMM members of the organizing committee for their kind invitations over the last 20 years, and looking forward to today's and future FMM conferences. Many warm thanks indeed, with equally warm congratulations on such successful conferences and relevant networks. Thank you very much indeed.